Alrighty, good evening, everyone. Chase here. Hope you've all had a good Thursday. I'm here with a live update to discuss the upcoming winter storm that's going to be impacting the Tennessee Valley and surrounding areas with all kinds of different precip opportunity and things. So before we do that, let me know where you're watching from on the Facebook or YouTube side and what city or town you're watching from as I shared this out to the other groups and things. So I'll be there in just a moment and we'll get started. Take me just a minute to share this out. Alrighty, that is done. So let's get right down to business here. First of all, I'm showing you the current watch warning advisory situation. Again, all these watches and advisories and warnings go into effect beginning early Saturday morning. This pink you see on the map here, that is a winter storm warning that goes in effect for pretty much almost all of Middle Tennessee, which includes Grundy, Coffee, Cannon, DeKalb, Warren, Van Buren, White, and Cumberland counties in our area. And that warning goes all the way up through Nashville and Murfreesboro, Jackson, Tennessee, up into Kentucky and the Ohio Valley. This purple you see here, the lighter purple, that is a winter weather advisory that goes in effect for Lincoln, Moore, and Franklin counties of southern Middle Tennessee and most of North Alabama, except the northwest part of Alabama around Florence and the Shoals, where they have an ice storm warning, which is what you see out here in this dark purple. And then across North Georgia and East Tennessee, so that'd be Chattanooga, the Sequatchie Valley, Trenton, Lafayette, Knoxville, Gatlinburg, Ringgold, those areas, you're under a winter storm watch. And the reason why you're not under a warning or an advisory just yet is because there's still a little bit of uncertainty as to how this is going to play out, even though models are now starting to finally get into a better groove, better agreement on timing, and even the potential precip amounts. So with all that being said here, let's go ahead. Now that we've broken down the watches here, now let's get right into the modeling here, because this is by far the most important thing as far as timing and all that's concerned. So I've skipped this all the way. And by the way, Friday, tomorrow, nothing going on. If you got anything planned tomorrow, it's fine. Saturday morning, I have this set for Saturday morning just after sunrise. And as you can see out here to the west, here's the wintry precip approaching us from the west. And to review the colors real quick, the blue you see here, snow. Orange is sleet. And then this pink you see, pink/purple, that is freezing rain. So watch what happens here as we go through the morning. Notice as we get towards mid to late morning, as lunchtime approaches on Saturday, here comes that wintry precip crossing I-65 and I-24. And it could very well begin as a little bit of snow, perhaps some sleet. But then as we get into the afternoon on Saturday, notice that freezing rain, that purple, starts invading the region, and areas south from like almost Scottsboro south pretty much actually go to all rain, while the rest of us go into this sleet and freezing rain as we get into Saturday afternoon. Again, this ECMWF model, that means the Euro model. So this is what I've been using consistently here the last several days. So here's Saturday afternoon. You can see the snow up here along I-40 and north, and sleet, freezing rain, and rain for the rest of us. And then notice as we get towards sunset and afterwards on Saturday, the precip rate's going to start increasing as the moisture levels increase. So this dark purple you see here, that is moderate to heavy freezing rain. And on the north side of that, as you see here, it turns into heavy sleet and things. So this is going to be a big mess here, especially Saturday evening. And there's even a possibility that in parts of the East Tennessee Valley and even Northwest Georgia Valley, there could even be some freezing rain if temperatures are 32.0 or below. So Saturday is going to be really all about the temperatures, Saturday and Saturday night. So if your temperature is 31, you can bet you're getting freezing rain. If the temperature is 33 or above, you won't get that. So Saturday night will vary depending on the temperature where you are, and also the temperature going on upstairs up towards the mid-levels. If the cold air is more shallow, and more towards the surface, you'll get freezing rain. If it's not as shallow, but still with a little bit of warm air aloft, then you'll get sleet. And I'll show you a graphic here in a few minutes that will break down those precip types and make it a little more simple for you. So back here to the timing. Here's 6 p.m. estimated time on Saturday night. Rain south, central Alabama basically and south. So basically from Guntersville Lake south, that'd be all rain and green. Rest of us in this mix between sleet and potentially moderate to heavy freezing rain. That continues through 9, 10. There's midnight. Notice as we get towards midnight, though, notice that warm nose is starting to increase a little more from the south and west, especially in the valley. So with time, as we get into late Saturday night and into Sunday, we should start seeing whatever freezing rain there is in the valley, if it does develop. We should, with time, start seeing it change over to just a cold rain as temperatures fight that freezing mark and try to get above it. So it's going to be a battle, but the hope is, and the goal is for the warmer air to win out, so that way it cuts down this freezing rain. But unfortunately, in the higher elevations, mountain areas, so the plateau, Lookout Mountain, parts of Sand, and even the North Georgia mountains, you may be holding on to this freezing rain a little longer Saturday night into Sunday, which could potentially be a big problem, and I mean possibly even ice storm problem. So we're going to have to really watch that thermometer very closely as we get into Saturday and Saturday night. And as we get into Sunday morning, it's mostly rain here across the valley, with some freezing rain still existing in the higher elevations. And then eventually everybody becomes all rain as we go towards Sunday afternoon, and it'll be a good soaking one too. And while that will do a good thing and hopefully helping melt at least some of that ice accretion, whatever that develops, the other downside is that considering the heavy rate of rain that this is showing here, there will be the possibility of some isolated localized flash flooding because of some of that ice melt, and then you're adding heavy rain on top of that. So that's something that will have to be monitored as we get into Sunday, especially towards Sunday afternoon and evening. And notice back out here to the west, the ice and everything does try to move back to the east and get close to the plateau. But notice as we get towards after sunset Sunday night, the moisture is forced out of here. And then following that will be some very cold temperatures. And I'm talking some very cold temperatures. We will drop into the teens area-wide after the moisture leaves Sunday night and the Monday morning, which will mean that any roads that are wet from rain or anything else, especially those back roads and bridges, overpasses, the usual suspect places when it comes to ice, those could easily freeze over. So we will have to watch that very closely for the Monday morning commute. And also, unfortunately, on Monday, we're also going to have a wind chill factor because we will have a breezy northwest wind blowing. So temperatures will be in the teens Monday morning, but it's going to feel like the single digits in the valley and even possibly below zero in the higher elevations. And the wind chill is not going to really dramatically change all that much during the day, only go up a little bit. And most of us on Monday will likely only make it into the 20s for highs. So Monday is just going to be a very cold day. And then we'll all drop into the teens, mountain areas single digits as we go into Monday night and Tuesday. Then the 30s Tuesday afternoon for highs. So after we get through this wintry precip this weekend, it's going to be about the cold as we start next week, and also those slick spots we're going to have to keep an eye on. So I would likely anticipate, at least because of the cold temperatures and the potential for black ice, I do see schools closing more than likely for at least part of next week. So I would go ahead and plan on that based on current observations. So that's just something I would go ahead and plan on. So with that said here, I'm going to show you the graphic here that I promised to show you here. This is what's called the graphic between rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow. So let's break this down in layman's terms here. Rain starts at cloud level here in this instance as snow, but as it hits that warm layer, that in this instance goes from mid-level to the ground, it's all liquid. So if the temperature at the surface is above freezing and above that, then it's rain. However, for freezing rain, there's usually a shallow layer of below freezing temperatures here near the surface and at the surface here especially. So it starts as snow in the clouds, then melts in the rain, and then as it approaches the surface and hits the surface actually, if the surface is below freezing, those rain droplets pretty much freeze on contact with anything, and that's what's called freezing rain. So freezing rain is where it starts as snow at the top, melts in the rain, and then when you have a temperature of 32.0 or below at the surface, it freezes on contact in the ground with the ground, therefore freezing rain. And that is our biggest concern. So our biggest concern is this, freezing rain. Again, this is going to be a temperature thing. Sleet, on the sleet end of things, again, starts as flakes up at cloud level, then it enters a more shallow area, a little more shallower area of warm air in the mid-levels. But then, just before it reaches the surface, it encounters below freezing temperatures. So those rain droplets will freeze into those ice pellets, which are known as sleet, as they come down to the surface. And then, of course, snow. It's snow in 32 or below pretty much from cloud to ground. So there's the difference there between rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow. You definitely don't want freezing rain. You really don't want sleet. You would rather, in this instance, have either just rain or just snow. If you're a snow lover, you want just snow. Unfortunately, this time around, there's not going to be a lot of this. It's going to be more of these first three precip types right here. That's what's going to be more of, at least in our area. Rain, freezing rain, and sleet. And it's going to be messy. So whether it's raining or you got freezing rain or sleet falling at your house this weekend, it's going to be a mess. I mean, period, point blank. Wet and frozen precip, not going to be a good time to want to go out. And Sunday, wet, wet, wet. Not going to be good either. And then early next week, we got the cold to deal with. So what I'll do here is, real quick here, I'll break down the timing here one more time just in case for those of you that are just tuning in. And then what I will do is I'm actually going ahead and logging in now. I'm going to go and answer some questions here as well. So we'll go into that too. So here we go again. Here's Saturday morning again here around 6 o'clock a.m. That's 7 a.m. Eastern time, so roughly sunrise. As you can see, the moisture is just beginning to approach from the west. Again, this blue you see here, that's snow, orange sleet, pink freezing rain. And then from west to east during the day, especially mid to late morning through early afternoon, all this mixed precip moves east. It could begin as a little bit of sleet and light snow as we get towards late morning into early afternoon. But then as we go into the afternoon on Saturday, it pretty much changes to all freezing rain. And for areas that get above freezing, you turn to rain. And then we're pretty much right in the middle of the thick of the precip here as we get towards Saturday evening and Saturday night through most of the day Sunday before it wraps up as we get into Sunday night. So again, the way it's looking right now is, again, as we start as a little bit of sleet and snow, ice south, then it changes to that freezing rain and also rain south and also in areas where it gets above freezing. And then with time, that should become all rain as we get into the day Sunday. And I actually have us hitting the 40s for highs during the day Sunday. So that would really help us if that were to verify. So let's hope for that. But I also want to make sure you're prepared for a colder scenario that could allow for more icing to get involved, especially in the higher elevations. And this is actually, and I hate to say this would actually be the worst case scenario for places like Nashville and Atlanta and even the Carolinas and Virginia, because they would be stuck in this northeast flow, which is called the wedge. And depending on how far west that wedge goes, that could play a factor, especially in the higher elevations locally, and even some of the valley areas in northwest Georgia. It could play a factor and possibly allow that freezing rain to last longer going into Sunday. So that's something we are definitely going to have to keep an eye out on, because models typically, they do a decent job with it, but sometimes they don't do a very good job with the temperature profile and all that. And that's what this is all, and I want to stress, is all going to come down to as to what you will see. So now I don't usually ever like asking for people to keep a close eye on the thermometers, but on your app or whatever that may be. But you're definitely going to want to keep an eye on that as the moisture approaches and moves through, specifically Saturday night, and Sunday morning, because if you're below freezing, you're going to have freezing rain, sleet as well potentially. And if you get above freezing, just liquid rain, and you won't have to worry about as much as an ice problem. But another concern, of course, is going into Monday morning, because we're going to fall into the teens Sunday night area wide. Wind chills will be in the single digits to below zero, and that's going to freeze whatever puddles or any moisture that's left down the roads. That stuff will freeze, and that could become a problem for the Monday morning commute. So let's track the temperature part of this, because I know that's going to be the big thing here. So let me show you what the Euro is showing here. And again, it's a reliable model, and one that I trust personally because of experience and all that. So here we go, going into Saturday morning. Most of us starting out in the 20s to around 30. Very critical. So whenever the moisture moves in, it could be anywhere in the form of flakes, sleet, or freezing rain if this were to verify. Now watch what happens as we go towards nighttime, especially as we get towards the afternoon and nighttime here. Temperatures do actually rise into the low, in some areas even mid-30s. So if we can get above that freezing mark sooner, that would be great, because then it would turn any ice into just rain. And then we kind of hover around those low to mid-30s. Again, very critical number in areas north in the upper 20s. So again, whatever your thermometer says, that's going to be very key with this. Then as we go overnight into Sunday, we should see that warmer air win out with time. So they'll become all rain. And as you see here, we get up into the 40s as we go into Sunday afternoon. And believe it or not, you get down here towards Montgomery, Alabama, and Columbus, Georgia, they may be talking 60s down there. So there's going to be a very sharp cutoff because of the wedge and the warm front and all that, and the cold front and everything. So you'll go from below freezing temperatures, and then a few hundred miles south, you're going to be talking about temperatures down towards the Gulf Coast, probably in the 60s and maybe a little warmer than that. So there's going to be a very sharp contrast, and unfortunately, we find ourselves right in the middle of that, where that winter battle zone is, where you could have the potential for pretty much all types of precipitation. And again, as I said earlier, one thing that's going to factor in is what the temperature is at your house and also up above. So let's break down as the moisture leaves Sunday night into Monday. Notice we all start dropping into the 20s first and then crash into the teens going towards sunrise on Monday. As you can see here, this has roughly around 20 in Chat, 12 in Crossville, so that would be about 10 degrees in Spencer, Grundy County, etc. So we'd be all in the teens roughly. And then notice we do warm up, but it's not going to warm up much. 20s to around 30 for highs on Monday. But I want to show you this wind chill factor here. And notice, look at this. Notice it's got some below zero readings of wind chills early Monday. Teens elsewhere across the valley. Again, if there were to be any below zero wind chills, that would be mainly for the plateau and up into Middle Tennessee and points north. And then Monday night into Tuesday, pretty much same thing. Single-digit wind chills in the valley, below zero wind chills potentially across Middle Tennessee and the Cumberland Plateau, and also out east in the Smokies. So again, Monday and Tuesday will be very, very cold following this system. And then there's your lows, mostly in the teens to single digits. So let me go through here and answer some questions here. I'll leave you with this graphic here so that way you can see the differences there between snow, sleet, and freezing rain, and also rain. Let me see if we got any questions here. South Pittsburgh, it says one asks here, what about South Pittsburgh? The way I'm seeing it there as of now, there in the Squatchy Valley, it's looking to be more of a mix between ice and rain. Again, that's going to be a temperature thing. So if your temperature there happens to be 31 or below, then you'll have that potential for freezing rain. If it's above 32, you'll just have plain old rain. But I do believe that with time, even in the mountains, especially going into Sunday, we will all be rain mostly by no later than Sunday afternoon. Let's see. Wondering if I'll be better off in McMinnville or Soddy Daisy. I would say Soddy, by far. I think Soddy would be better. Now, there is the possibility of some freezing rain even in the East Tennessee Valley. But that, again, as I said, that's going to depend on temperature. But you would be better off in Soddy than McMinnville in that instance. Why don't more forecasts mention radial ice? Saw a report that said up to a half inch of surface ice on the plateau, but only 10 to 17 hundredths of an inch of radial ice on limbs and power lines. Again, I'm not sure, but at the same time, though, any kind of ice, no matter how much, no matter how little or how much, any kind of freezing rain is very concerning because, it doesn't take a whole lot of freezing rain to cause slippery conditions, for it to accumulate on power lines and trees and anything else. That's something to watch. Let's see here. Spring City to Wartburg. Out of the two, Wartburg would have a better chance of snow than Spring City, but you're definitely going to get some ice and probably change to rain up in that area. How accurate are the models at this point? 50-50, 80-20. Really, I would actually still right now, I'd have it more at a 60-40 and 60% confidence because what I'm waiting on also, the good thing is starting tomorrow, even tonight we'll get an early peek at the HRRR in a way. It'll start getting in better range, but by 12Z tomorrow, so that's about mid-morning, the HRRR, the reliable HRRR model will finally be within the 48-hour range of this storm. So that should help greatly with the convective and everything else. And it does a better job of depicting the difference between the mountains and the valley and all that and the other precip types and things. So the good thing is tomorrow we will finally be in range of the HRRR model, which is the HRRR, and that should help things here greatly with the forecast confidence and timing. Hickson Red Bank, again, more of an ice rain mix. Again, though, that will vary on your temperature. Flat Top Mountain, pretty much the same thing in that area, too. So, again, to review these precip types real fast. Again, rain, start to snow, and then when the air is above freezing from mid-levels to ground, just rain. Freezing rain, that's where it starts to snow. Freezing rain is where it starts to snow at cloud level, melts in the rain as it moves into that warmer air, almost to the surface, but at the surface, if it's 31 or below usually, that's what would turn those, that means the rain droplets would freeze on contact with the ground, and therefore that's how you get your freezing rain accumulation. Sleet is where, again, starts as flakes at the top, moves into a more shallow warm layer, melts in the rain, but then it has time before it reaches the surface, more time that is, to refreeze into those ice pellets, which is sleet, as it reaches near the surface. And then snow, basically all snow from cloud to ground, has temperatures at that point would be freezing or below. So that's kind of like a basic background as far as what precip types are and all that stuff. So with that said here, so how should you prepare? Now, as you have seen, the governors of Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, and some other states as well, have all declared state of emergency. So that means, in other words, all the EOCs are activated. They will be ready to go. Plows and TDOT, GDOT, all the plows, they will all be ready to go and preparing and all that here in the next few days. So that just means that the whole planning thing and making sure things in line and all that for this event here, that's what the state of emergency opens up. It allows all that to be opened up. So, in other words, EOCs and everything, TDOT and all that, plow and everything, that's all opened up with the state of emergency call. So, that's one thing. Now, the good thing here is I'm hoping that as far as like I'm hoping we can get more of a warm layer, so that way it would be more rain and freezing rain, or we can get more of a cold layer that could involve more snow. But I hate to say this, but the way it's looking it's not going to really be much snow for us. It's going to be one of these first free precip types right here. So that'd be rain, freezing rain, sleet, unfortunately. So that's the downside to it all. But I will say this: you got tomorrow, all day tomorrow to get ready. Buy whatever you need. Don't hoard it necessarily. Just get what you need that will get you through the weekend, at least the first part of next week, especially in the higher elevations and up around I-40 and points north and west from there, especially. So you definitely want to get what you need to get you through at least the weekend and the first part of next week, especially in the higher elevations. So whatever you need, whether it's bread, milk, supplies, generators, things that you'll need, because the problem with freezing rain is once you get to that category of around a quarter of an inch or higher, that's when you start running into some very serious problems. And I'm talking power outages, tree damage, and all that stuff. So you want to make sure that ahead of time, out of precaution, you need to make sure that you have your phones charged and everything else. Just make sure your heating is working and all that other stuff, because freezing rain is no bueno. It's no good. And especially once you get up to around a quarter of an inch or above, that's what classifies as an ice storm. An ice storm is when you have a quarter of an inch of ice or more. Hopefully, we can manage to stay below that threshold to where it's a little more of a manageable deal, but at the same time, unfortunately, there is that chance, especially in the higher elevations, where you do run that risk for more ice. And again, that's all going to depend on temperature, the track of the system, and of course the wedge of cold air that's going to it's going to definitely make its attempt to make it down from the Western Carolinas. So as we go into towards Saturday night. So again, a lot to watch, a lot to monitor. The good thing though is, out of all this, I will say, is that forecast confidence as far as timing and all that is getting better. And that will continue to get better as we get within 48 hours of this. So that'll be good. So as far as the timing, planning, and all that standpoint, we are getting better with it and all that. Now, a few days ago, there was consistent confidence that we would get snow here, but as you've seen the last 48 hours, that has totally flip-flopped, and that's what typically happens when you have a storm system that just hadn't made its way on land yet. And that's another reason why the hurricane hunters, they actually went out and investigated last night that low pressure as it was off the coast of Baja California, because just to help get better data and actually get better not just surface but also upper air data in real time. And that real time data was fed into all the models and everything, and that's what's helped today with better forecasting the timing and precip types. But it will get even better tomorrow and Saturday morning. We'll be able to break this down a lot better as the event approaches and gets here. So with that said here, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. I will have a written update for you here in about an hour and a half, 2 hours-ish here. So one more update for the night before I go to bed. And again, it'll be a typical, written out kind of post. So no graphics, just written out. So be on the lookout for that here within the next couple of hours, and again, I will continue to keep y'all updated and everything else. So stay tuned for further updates, and I hope y'all have a great and safe Thursday night.